Hello and welcome to this introduction video on Deku. This is the documentation website for Deku. Currently, there's very little documentation on the actual code, like go through tutorial-ish description of how to use it. And we are not going to follow this instructions. I'm going to show you in a way that I find is easy to lean into without really understanding how things work, but still being able to get something on your screen working. This web page is really nice. So if you want to understand things more deeply, go to this web page and start reading. But there's a lot of things to get in. So new repository project. The only thing I've done here is done spago install. I'm going to create a file and I'm going to call index and I'm going to just call it example. I'm also going to here do script and I'm going to add a source, and now we're going to add here this, and what that will do is it will function and create one file and put it in root, which is here. And you can see here that it's very languages is that it tries to be quite easy to see how the Purescript code became this JavaScript code. So if we have the Purescript code next to us, we can see that it's very much one-to-one also log function with the user symbol for the emoji. So now we want to incorporate this file here. So I'm going to do this one. It's nice. So if we would open this file in browser and check the but it's only because of plugins that I have to ignore them. We have basic application up and running. I'm also gonna this one, so it will run in the background and upgrade the files as it's needed. And this will be more or less what we the HTML we will write here today. So I want to show you some concepts of FRP and try to explain how events and stuff works that we're going to use together with Deku. So in Deku, you have events and behaviors. We'll just look at events today. Events are things that are happening and is basically a stream of values. So whenever something happens, and it depends on people how the event is implemented, it's either change or just a update or something like that. You can then use that to trigger new stuff. So in my mind, it's halfway between a callback and halfway between a stream. So we're gonna first start with the simplest thing, I think, which is to just log some information. So we're gonna say void, which means we're gonna ignore the result of a computation here. We're just interested in the effect. Then we're gonna do subscribe, and I'm just gonna out there. And we can see here that it's from the module frp.event, and the package is Hyrule. So a lot of the packages here are like video game name branded, particular Zelda games. So Hyrule is a place in the Zelda universe, and Deku is, I think, like you have the Deku tree. I don't remember really what Deku is, but it's from there. Okay, and the event I want to subscribe to is a interval. So interval, and I want something to happen every second. So this is in milliseconds. And what I want to happen then is for it to log show that event. So now when we save this and we start this, we can see here that it starts sending these events and it should, oh, it has a failure. Okay. What's the failure? Oh, I guess we need to restart this, kill it and start it again. Because when you add packages, it doesn't install them until you restart the server. So it was nice to see this so that you learn to find that issue by yourself, or like, well, so you don't need to find how to solve this issue by yourself. Is what I mean. Okay, so now if we restart this, you can see here that we get this instant a millisecond. And this is how we can drive time if we want to in Deku, or in this case, Hyrule. So let's do some SVG. So SVG, if you don't know, is a vector format that is very compatible with the web. You can basically write something that looks a little bit like HTML, but generates pictures, vector graphics. I find it like a really easy first go-to if you want to do something that is animated and more graphical, because it will use coordinates, and the order of you put the elements is the order they will be rendered to screen instead of the order they will happen in the document. For this kind of, I want a circle here and I want the circle there, that makes more sense. We do this by do run Deku, I think. Oh, run in body, sorry. So now it will install that, and we will need to reload. And we also need to have a specific do. So Deku have its own do, and currently we don't have support for importing do's in the plugin, but automatically, I mean, like it works now. And here we can start writing SVG. So SVG, we want to put some attributes, and we want to have a draw area that is the same size as the window. So I'm going to do width is, and this operator here, you basically use whenever you have a constant number, when you don't have something that's dependent on an event. And we're going to just do 100 view width, and we're also going to do height. Hundred view height. And I think I lied before when I said we're not going to go and do any more HTML. We're going to just put one more thing here in the HTML and say style overflow hidden. Okay, that's good enough for me. So we don't want to see that. We don't want to see that. We want to restart this. And I should have imported this first. So now we have this SVG. We want to have maybe a rectangular that we can move around. So let's create a rect. I'm going to do direct. And it has a x coordinate. And I'm just going to start by saying that it's 0. And we're going to do a width. I'm going to do a new variable here, show size. So let's create a size. 25, I think, is a nice number. And let's do a new line here and do some formatting. Didn't I? Okay. There. And let's fix some errors here. So I'm gonna optimize imports. It will then merge some of these. And then I'll awesome. So now if we go here and reload, you can see this square. We also want to give it a color. So let's do fill, which is the fill color. And I'm just gonna make it green. Because why not? Ah, I need this N. There. Awesome. So it would be nice to have this square move a bit. Say that we can change some inputs and outputs. So I'm just gonna create a direction class here, or direction data structure. So data direction, and I want that to be up, I want it to be down, I want this to be left, I want it to be right. So this is for if you come from other languages than Purescript, this is basically an enum. And what I then want to do is create a repack a event. So there's an event is called down that takes, you have both for mouse and keyboard, but here we're taking the keyboard event. And I want now to read the keyboard event and transform it into a direction. So I'm just gonna do key to direction, and it takes a string and case of the string. So let's do up arrow. I think that's the thing. Then we'll do up. But the thing is that we don't always have a key for any text here. So I'm going to wrap it in just. Just is in the maybe package. So let's do spargo install maybe. So this is an optional type, maybe. So if you don't know if you will have a value, this is a good thing to use. And we can do that. And for any other value, I'm just going to do nothing, which is the empty version of a maybe. I'm unsure about this up arrow text if it's the correct one. So let's go to MDN and look for code. Go here and do left, right. So the arrow up actually, and not up arrow. So arrow up. And let's do that and down. Left. Oh, that was spicy. Right. So we have this function that now transform a text to a direction. So I can use this operator. So if you don't know, this operator works a little bit like a method call. It says the function I'm going to write here, f, is going to be called on what's on the left-hand side. So it's like the dot in a method call. When you have these wings around it, it usually means that you go like within a structure. So this is an event of string, right? And we want now to apply a function to that string so that we get a event of direction. So now we can do key to direction. But the problem here is that we only want when there's actually something there. It's not good enough to get a maybe direction. We want to have a direction. And there's a function for that. It's called compact. So compact will take this stream of keyword inputs that becomes a string of direction. And only if there's actually a direction, it will then trigger the event. Now I want to extract this to a new function. Let's call this function player. And player but we want player to take a direction. So let's give it up. So depending on the direction now, we want to have a x coordinate and a y coordinate. Let's get a point from a direction. So we actually don't need those. And then do D. So this operator takes two values and create a pair. And we also have an error here saying that we don't have all the cases. So let's create all the cases here. Do down, left, and right. And we can also simplify this by saying this. So this is shorthand for saying the first argument. I don't know if this actually is clear. I just wanted to show you that it exists. So let's undo that. So if it's down, we're gonna add one, but we're actually gonna do that in the other position, right? Because x is left to right, y coordinate is up and down, and up is negative y. So let's take this now and get the direction. So we can do this in many, many ways. I'm just going to do it the simplest way that I have right now in my head. I'm sorry if this is not intuitive to you, but I'm just going to unpack it using a case of. So I'm going to do case of point direction and do x, y, arrow, like so. And now we can do show x times size, and do y times size, do show on that. Okay. So now if we run this, go back here, we will see that we can't see the square because it's outside of bounds. So let's just add 1, 2x here. So that we at least have something. And now we see it and it's up. So how do we now go from direction to actually call player, but with the content of the event? There's a operator, as always, that takes any event, like direction here, and uses it to then render part of the DOM. This is not that easy to read, I think, because the DOM lock payload gets everywhere. So the DOM lock payload is called a nut in Deku. So if we ask it to provide this one, it looks very daunting, but it's actually just the direction to nut. And we can do it like this, and it becomes a little bit easier on the eyes. And we just import that. And here, this one will be trivial, except that we have a tuple in scope. And this one is also trivial. So now, if everything works, we have the direction, which is a event of directions, and we pipe the direction into the player, and the player takes the direction and gets the point, and then change the coordinate depending on that. So now, if I restart and give it a direction, it remembers that one and keeps it. So you don't see it now, but I'm clicking the keyboard keys. So this is a quite simple example of how to take an event from input and then generate a application that acts on that event. So to make things a little bit more interesting, we can make that that square move depending on what direction we are. So if we extract now this function that basically takes a y and an x, so that we have a position instead of a direction that the player has. So let's just move this outside. Let's just rewrite it, I think. I think we need parentheses here, if I remember correctly. So now it's tuple of int. And now this one doesn't match, but let's just pipe it through point. Why did it fail? Oh, parentheses in the wrong place. There. So if I reload it, you can see that we have the old behavior. So now we're interested in having a point over time. So let's introduce our tick that we had before. So we create a tick, which was a interval, let's say every half second, I think is okay. And then we want to have a position that starts at um, so let's fold over add. So we will add these tuples together. And if I get here, the fold takes first a function from B and A to B, and then it takes a B. So let's give it a start position. So let's say 10 and maybe 10 is too big. Let's give it 5 and do 5, F5. And then it was take an event. So we want to have direction. So let's start here. We want to, as before, map position, sorry, direction to point. There. Why can't we have position? We can have position. I just need to wait a bit. So we're not using tick here because instead we're okay. It's because I can't write my CSS rules. You've probably seen this the whole time. View height. So it was there, it was just outside of screen. So now I can walk around. Let's see why this is the case. So when I hit the keyboard stroke, we get a direction. We map that direction to a point, which is here. And in Purescript, some traits are like inherited for structures. So even though a tuple in itself, you can't add two tuples to each other, tuples includes integers can be added together because integers know how to add each other and tuple knows how to add things within itself if they themselves are addable, if that makes sense. So it's first 5, 5, and then if I hit right, it adds 1 to the first, and so on and so forth. But let's have some real time now, which means that we want to send a direction or a point even when we're not hitting a key. How to do this is saying, okay, on tick, I want to sample the right hand side. So this one takes an event and another event, and it returns that event whenever the first event triggers. So now I'm not hitting anything, and every half second it moves, and I go down, and now it moves. So you can see how this is like the beginning of a game where you're walking around and stuff. But I think that's good enough. We have done some FRP, we have done some debugging, we have used the editor to install packages and to create stuff. So I think this was good. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.